So what's the difference between a millionaire's aeroplane and a billionaire's aeroplane? And this is the subject of today's video here on Biz Jet TV. We're going to look at the differences, and most of the time people tend to think, well, it's very easy. Just the big aeroplane belongs to the billionaire, the small aeroplane belongs to the millionaire. Now, in most cases, that is true. But if you stay to the end of the video, I'll reveal you a special hack that if you are a millionaire and you want to become a billionaire, there is a hack where you can get a big aeroplane for a lot less money, and I'll tell you what airplane it is and how to go about it. But anyway, let's get into today's episode. But before we do, you need to join the quantum economy. It's all about the quantum economy. Quantum economy is my latest book. You can get copies by clicking on the link below. I talk about Vietnam in this book. Recently, there's been a lot of talk about Vietnam and how the Vietnamese economy is growing, how the fact that many people are going to Vietnam to do business. And I talk about it in my book, saying Vietnam's a great place to go with your private jet to do business. And I wrote this book just about 2 years ago. I started talking about Vietnam in the book, and it was published this year. So I was perfectly, forecast was right there, right on the money. So I'm glad that happened. And you can find all about that in the quantum economy. Stories in here about people using the private jet to take them to that quantum speed and do business. So get yourself a copy and click on the link below. Lots of value in that book. So let's get into the Millionaires Plane, the Billionaires Plane. Now, and first of all, when we're talking about millions and billions, it's difficult for most people to figure what the difference is. So let's look at some maths here. So let's take someone with $500 million and someone with $3 billion. And even the 500 million and 3 billion, it's difficult to sort of see the difference and perceive the difference. So let's just take those numbers down a bit more. And let's look at $500 compared to $30,000. So let's say you're going to go out and you're going to buy a car. And what car would you buy if your budget was $500? What car would you buy if you had $30,000? Now, start thinking. Now, obviously, with $30,000, you're getting close to buying a new car, or a car that's maybe a year or two old, that's got modern technology in it, and that burns less fuel, that looks nicer, that's better maintained, got less mileage on it. Well, airplanes, same thing. Now, with $500, you can buy a bigger car than someone $30,000. So size doesn't really, mean that bigger the plane or bigger the car, more expensive it is. Because there are some small cars that are really, really expensive, and there's some big cars that are really cheap. Same with airplanes. But, in the case of an airplane, a private jet, it's a business tool. And this is what, we've talked about many episodes here on Biz Jet TV, and I do also in my book, The Quantum Economy, about how the private jet can become that business tool for you. Now, let's talk prices of planes. Now, these days, you can go out and buy a Learjet or a Citation for $400,000 or $500,000. Yes, it's going to cost you a bit of money in maintenance and that to get it up and running. But say with $1.5 million, you can get yourself a decent jet with about 2,000 mile range, which takes you all across the United States or Europe and that, depending on where you are in the world. And that will do the job of, allowing you to leverage your time. And that's why people buy private jets, to save time and allow you to do that. And that's one aspect. But of course, with $1.5 million, you're not going to buy the latest and greatest. Now, you could buy a $10 million jet and put the latest and greatest avionics in it. And of course, price, range, those things play into it. And so the first thing I always say to people, where do you need to go with this airplane? Where are you actually doing business now? Where do you want to do business in the next 3 to 5 years? And so how many times a year do you think you're going to be going across the Atlantic to London or Zurich or wherever? And let's see if it's worthwhile. If you're going to make the trip twice a year, then you may be okay to stop and refuel in between. If you're going to be doing it once a month, a different story. Then maybe you need something that's got range to take you straight over the Atlantic. So the costs, you can buy an older airplane that's got the range. $15 million will buy you an airplane that's got 6,000 mile range. Obviously, it's an older airplane. The avionics aren't as modern. The cabin maybe needs refurbishing. Maybe it needs a new paint job. But these are all things that can be done. And there's more and more people these days that are buying the older airplanes and refurbishing them and giving them new life. And you step onto these airplanes and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between a brand new one almost and one that's been completely refurbished. You'd have to look very, very carefully, maybe get the logs out and see, this has got 5,000 hours on it. It wasn't delivered by the factory last week, or kind of thing. So those are the things you got to think about. Now, the Billionaire, on their airplane, they're usually very meticulous about the interior. So you'll see that they'll have better leather, better interior. Another trick is to look at the cockpit. If you see all these screens, then chances are it's got modern avionics. That's more expensive than the steam gauges. The paint job from the outside, yeah, you can put a good paint job on an old aeroplane. Engines, you can't really tell if they're new or old. But certainly on the inside, billionaires do really pride upon the interior of their private jets, and some people do go really over the top. Some of the airplanes I've been in, they've done really, some of them really silly things with the interiors, gold this and gold that, and spent, we sold a 777 to a guy a few years ago. He spent 60 million to buy the airplane and 200 million on the interior. And $200 million in the interior of a private jet. But again, if you're the $3 billion guy, you can afford to do that. But if you're the $500 million guy, you want to go about it in a different way. And ultimately, for most people, the airplane is a business tool. So what does that mean? You need to be comfortable in it. You need to look at pressurization. What pressurization is in the cabin at cruising altitude, because that does affect your performance, and that's important. You can save a lot of time traveling by private jet. When you get the other end, you want to be rested enough to be able to spring into action and peak perform. That's really, really important. That's something you need to consider. And the newer jets, because of the design of the fuselage and the air systems and the pressurization systems, the cabin altitude is coming down even to like 3,500 feet at 45,000 feet. And that's really, really good, because the airliners these days, they're pressurized at 8,000 feet. So between 8,000 and 4,000, it's double. So it's like you're sitting on a mountain. And if you've ever been up in the mountains and stayed in the mountains and gone for a run, compared to when you go for a run over Venice Beach or in Hawaii and that, where you're at sea level, your body at altitude needs to work a lot harder to keep things going. And so it's the same in an airplane. So if you're in an airplane for 12 hours at 8,000 feet cabin pressure, when you get off that plane, you're going to be tired. And so the newer airplanes, because of the technology and that, they're bringing that cabin altitude down. And that is going to have an effect on your performance. So that's one to bear in mind. But, if you're a multi-millionaire, you may not be able to afford the new airplane with the lower pressurization. But, as I said, most of the time, the millionaires have the smaller jets, or they have the older, bigger jets. Just interrupting the video very briefly, because here on Biz Jet TV, we're giving out lots of free general information about private jets and the private jet world. But if you are really contemplating buying a private jet, let's help you to make that decision in the best informed way by getting very specific to your case. And to do that, just ping me an email and we will schedule you in for a one-to-one call and help come up with the right strategy so that you, your team, your family can start joining that quantum economy. So ping me an email, let's get on a call. Let's get back to the video, off we go. But here's the hack. And people see Donald Trump turn up in his Boeing 757, they say, oh, he's got that airplane because he's got a lot of money. But today a 757 or 737, you can buy a 737 half-life from the airlines these days for $6-7 million. Take the interior out, put extra fuel tanks, put a VIP interior in there, and without going over the top, you can do all that for about $15 to $20 million. And that airplane will keep flying. Yes, it's got 40,000 hours on it, but these Boeings are designed to fly 80, 90, 100,000 hours. So, and you're only going to fly probably 400 or 500 hours a year in your private jet. So you've still got a lot of airplane left. There's a lot of life left in this airplane. And you put a brand new interior in there without going over the top, put a bedroom at the back, maybe a shower, put some nice seats in there, a ballroom kind of thing. And you can do an interior and a BBJ for, a decent amount without spending $100 million. Some people have spent that kind of money. Now, the only disadvantage in buying a Boeing business jet or a Boeing airliner and turn it into a private jet is, of course, when this thing lands, it needs a certain amount of runway. It needs space to park on the apron or in a hangar. So you may have limitations as far as which airports you can go in and out of with a large airplane like that. Now, a lot of this will depend on your range. But if you're a multimillionaire and you want to impress somebody, best thing you could do is to go out there and buy a 737, get it converted into a VIP aircraft. And now you've got a powerful tool, because you can send that airplane out to pick somebody up that you're doing a deal with and tell them, bring your family, my jet can carry 20 people. Oh, they turn up with their family on this Boeing business jet and they're like, wow, this guy's must be serious. He's flying in his airplane. It's got his logo on it. He's got his name on the cushions and on the plates inside the airplane and that. It's branded. you know, you use that airplane to go out and pick people up and bring them to you, you know, that's going to be a very valuable business tool that will make you the money that you paid for the airplane. Now, as far as operating the airplane, now the fuel will cost a little bit more because it's an airline, it weighs more. But, you know, you're going to save on parts, you're going to save on pilot training because there are more 737s out there. So if you need to buy a fuel pump for Global 7500, it's more expensive than a fuel pump for 737. If you need to train a pilot, it's $80,000, $90,000 on a Global 7500, and it's just $12,000 on a Boeing. So, you know, you factor all these things in, this larger Boeing airplane that you just bought, kitted out and everything for $20 million compared to a $60 million Global 7500. I mean, that $40 million difference, you can buy a lot of fuel for that. So this is where, you know, considering an airliner and turning it into a private interior is really a game changer. And that's something that, you know, if you're looking at doing this, is something that will definitely bring you a really good return on your investment. They're reliable airplanes. When they do break down, because all airplanes break down, finding parts and people to fix it is easy, because let's face it, there's lots of 737s flying around the world. Same with pilots. Finding pilots, there's plenty of them out there. And so, you know, these are things that you need to consider. So let's get the comments going below. Let's get the conversation. What do you think about the difference between the Millionaires Jet and the Billionaires Jet and this hack that I gave you here at the end? And remember, get yourself a copy of The Quantum Economy. Subscribe to the channel. Click below for the link to get your book. And also click on the link below to subscribe. And check out this other video we did recently about the hidden dangers of private jet travel. Yes, private jet travel can be very dangerous. In most cases, it is dangerous. And I explain what those dangers are in this next video. So check this one out. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. That's all from Fabrizio here on Biz Jet TV. I'll see you in the next one.